Hello everybody, here we are and let's just simply start working on the project. Coming back to this, just a second, what the, sorry, I just closed that. I should not have done that, but let me just simply get it back here, and hopefully everything's up and running, and we are gonna be working on the project again, and that is mainly gonna be the group section that we were planning to implement. Okay, so let's just simply start working on this. So we were here, and first of all we had to get all the selected shape and IDs. So let's just simply get them. So when it comes to selected shapes, this is the selected shape context. In the context we can easily get the selected shapes. So const selected shapes IDs, that's gonna be used. Selected shapes IDs, we have it. Once we have the selected shape IDs, so we have to get the, when it comes to handle group selection, so we just need the IDs, we don't really need the shapes, that's right. So we have the IDs, create a group object, and const new group, it will have the ID, that's gonna be UUID v4. Let's go to the top, import v4 as UUID v4, UUID v4 from UUID. So we have the ID. The next thing is that this type of this group is gonna be okay, it actually comes from there, and then it needs to have groups. So it needs to have shapes or group shapes. So shapes in a group, that's okay, fine as well, not really a problem. So what we'll do, we'll have shapes, and shapes is gonna be selected shapes IDs, just like this. So ultimately shapes, should I have it like this? As for right now this is fine, but later of course we'll need to change this, especially when I'm saving it in a database. So this is good for MongoDB, but when it comes to a SQL database, so at that time what will actually happen, that if there is a shape that can have just one group ID, and if there are group IDs, those group IDs can have many shapes, so ultimately that's gonna be repeated. One group ID can have many shapes, so we would have to create another folder. Okay, that can be done easily. It's all about it, like we have key value pairs right now, so it's good for MongoDB, so we can easily use MongoDB database using this schema. But when it comes to SQL, so we will have to just simply even structure it better. So this thing is done, and this should actually be shapes ID. So let's just rename it shapes ID or group shapes IDs. That's fine enough. I can come back to this one, and this is gonna be shapes IDs. So we have this. So ultimately sort of a group has been created. Create a group object and push it in groups. Now we have to even push it. So set groups. Okay, it's not really being exported, so I have to export it first of all. In that case, if I go to groups, we are exporting it. Index.ts, export everything from groups. Now if I actually come back to this one, use set it should be use groups, and this should be use set groups. Done. If I actually come back to this one now, use set groups, this actually takes one argument required but got 0. Use set groups. We'll have it like this. So ultimately this whole look is gonna be inside a callback, and the reason is that it should not be getting called directly. Something like this I'll have it, and ultimately there's gonna be a function that will be returning it, sort of like this. Now this should be alright. We have set groups, and once we actually have the set groups, so we have to just simply set it here. So set groups, we have to set groups, so get the previous ones. Once we have the previous ones, so dot previous and the group. Okay, so this is how we are gonna be having it here. Add a group ID to shapes, even we have to do it's all the selected shapes that I have. So we have selected shape IDs. We have selected shape IDs, const selected shapes. We have the shapes, and probably in future I am gonna be creating a function for getting the shapes. That would be better because the logic is being repeated. But as for right now, like passing the selected shape IDs and getting the shapes, there should be a utility function. Selected shapes dot filter. Selected if it has the shape dot ID, that simply means that's gonna be the selected one. So we have selected shapes right now. Coming back to this, we don't need this. We just need to have set shapes. Let's just simply set the shapes here. Set shapes. We have the previous values. Once we actually have the previous one, so now as we have the previous values, so what do we have to do? We have to modify them, right? We don't have to remove anything. we have to just modify. So previous not like this actually. When it comes to modifying, so previous dot map previous shape, and what do we have to do? We got all the previous shapes and they need to be modified. So selector dot has previous shape dot id. If it has the id, that simply means that is a selected shape. If that is a selected shape, it needs to have previous shape and group id, and that's gonna be new group dot id. Otherwise previous shape. Let's see whether this works or not. So what we are doing, that we'll get the previous shapes. Once we get the previous shapes, we are just simply mapping through them. These are actually gonna be shapes, previous shapes. Then once we are mapping through them, so we'll get the previous shape. Once we have any particular shape, we'll check whether that is selected or not. So if that is selected, in that case we have to add the group id in that, otherwise we do not have to add. Before even that, we have to make sure that a shape actually accepts that. So when it comes to a shape, right, it has group IDs. Group IDs. How can a shape belong to many groups? Is that possible? Can a shape belongs to many groups? Let's see. Can a shape belongs to many groups or not? It depends on the editor you are trying to emulate. In Excalidraw, no, a shape can belong to at most one group. Each shape has a single group ID is array, so a layer has exactly one parent in the document tree. So that can be page, then there can be frame, then group, rectangle. So for Excalidraw clone app, ID and group ID is gonna be enough for a shape. If you want to support nested groups later, so we can have group IDs. A shape should have one immediate parent group, even if it is indirectly part of multiple ancestor groups. Since you are building an Excalidraw clone, I'd store a single parent relationship. If you later decide to support nested groups like Excalidraw, you can evolve this to group ID each parent chain without changing the core rule the shape has. So group IDs can even have many IDs. How does this work? How does this actually work? So the key idea is that just a minute, let me see it in action here. So we have this, right? Actually I'd rather go here. We have this particular group, then we have this shape. If we try grouping them, we'll need to group them. So at least we cannot group these together. That's the first thing. and that's okay. Then in that case I'm gonna be going with this option. I'll just have a string as a group ID, or the value can actually be null as well. So as that is optional, so there is no need to set it to null, but string or null gonna be enough. Group ID is great, and by default it's not gonna be there. That's okay, fine with that. So close this. We already have what when we create it, so we have an ID, then we have shapes ID, and when it comes to a group, so we have a group ID in there, and group ID is gonna be new group dot ID. That's fine. Once we have done this, add group ID to shapes, that is also done. Invalidate, modify the logic of render overlay. Now we've done this. There is group ID as well, and once there is group ID, so we have to just simply invalidate it. It is a hook, it is just a context. Handle group selection. So let's try invalidating it right here, or I need to do something else. We had to invalidate others, we didn't have to invalidate. Let's invalidate them, later we'll see, because I don't even know how it's gonna be functioning. So as for invalidating it later, we'll find some better place to keep it, but as for right now, use canvas renderer and invalidate. So we are gonna be invalidating the previous shapes. Okay, this particular thing is done. Now we have groups, okay, and not only groups, we are gonna have the group ID in the shapes if there's any group, and we should be able to ungroup as well. So handle group selection, then handle ungroup selection. What will happen here when it comes to handling ungroup selection? So we even need to know which group is selected, right? So suppose I clicked on this one, so we know that this particular group is selected, so we need to have selected group, and especially as soon as I click on a group, so we just simply set a selected group ID there, so that we can just simply recognize this. And once we have the selected group, then we can find all the shapes, and then we can just simply render them. Interesting. As for right now, what I want, by default, do I want them to be visible? Not really. Over here I don't want, but that's okay. By default, the group itself is not gonna be visible. Only when I click on an image, then it's gonna be visible, and that's fine. Okay. So as for right now, what I'll do, I'll actually make it visible, and then later I'll remove it. So if the group actually exists, it should be visible, and later what I'll do, when I click on that, I'm gonna be making it visible as per the condition. Yeah, that would be better. So now the next thing is that if I have interesting, how can we implement this? So I have the data, but it's all about rendering the data the right way. So I have groups now, and apart from the groups, let me see whether this thing is working or not. So redux, editor store, we are gonna have we don't really have group here. That's okay. The group is still not here. Interesting. Group selection error here. Set groups selected shape dot context. Okay, this does not really exist. Oh, understood. Yeah, let me just fix this thing as well firstly. So when it comes to sliceage, we have this group slice, create group slice. So I need to go to store, but okay, this seems to be alright. What is the problem? There is no create group slice. Interesting. I think they should be the default ones. Export const create group slice. Export const group slice. We have groups, we have set groups. It actually comes from sliceage group slice, and yeah, so let's do one thing. Done. Done. So this way it should be fine. Now I should see groups here. So editor store, we have shapes, we even have groups. This one, right? Now as I draw the images, the shapes, whatever they are, if I click and group selections, I get this, and inside this what do we have? We have the ID of two shapes. The next thing that we actually have to focus on, that is actually implementing this. Having said that, when there is any group, at that time we don't really need to render the child bounds. So that is something we have to keep in mind. So initially we had to render them, yeah, then once they are good we don't have to. That's great. Now we don't. Okay, fine. So this particular thing is done. Now the only thing that I have to work on, that is the renderer section. So if I go to hooks, renderer, in this, so this is the part we have to work on, and we mainly have to work on the overlay section. That is the first thing. So this particular section, and what do we have to check? That if we have because right now we don't have any way to set the bounds of the group, hence we have to directly give it the border for now, so that we can later implement the logic and then we'll remove the border. So what we can do, that is right now it's going to be pretty simple. If I have groups, any group for that region, simple. So I actually have to render them and they should be visible clearly. Make sense? So marquee selection is okay, let it be here. Render the shapes and all, that is also fine. And this is the selection section, and here we are rendering all these things. What is my saying here, that if I have the, just a minute, let me get rid of this first of all. If I have group but to get the groups I need their values directly without depending on the state, so to get that directly I'll have to get it the way I'm getting it here. So what do we want? Let's see, use it should be coming from editor store only, so no problem as such. We'll have groups. This is the first thing, but even before that we may click on any shape. Wait for a sec. Suppose we are not even clicking on a shape, we just know that there is a group. So if we have a group, we just want to render the group in a different way. That's the only thing that I want. Later it's gonna be changed for sure. So if I have a single group, that simply means if I have groups dot length, okay, so probably in here. Forget about selecting, by default I should have that. If groups dot length that's greater than 0, that simply means I have groups, and then I have to do the things here. Logic is gonna be here. Now when it comes to that logic, what do we need to do first? Logic wise, once we have the groups, so now we need to get the selected shapes or grouped shapes. Const grouped shapes, and they are gonna be shapes dot filter group. It actually has the id each, so grouped shape id new set. Let's just simply use set here. Groups dot shapes groups. There is a problem. The problem is that this group itself is an array, and if we want to render everything, so we'll have to loop, and looping doesn't make any sense at this point in time. Why? Because this is fine, we can loop through them, that's alright, it can be done. So ultimately whenever we are doing this, so we are handling the selection over here, and when it comes to selection, so selection shapes dot for each, and for each we just render this and this, right? If there are more than one shape, same thing we have to do here. So we have to get the selected shapes, but we can actually have many groups. So groups dot for each, I'm gonna get a group, and then we'll have a group shapes id each, and then it would be group dot shapes id each, they are the grouped shapes IDs. Once we have grouped shapes IDs, I can get the grouped shapes. So shapes is grouped shapes IDs as shape.id, that is the grouped shape. Once we have the grouped shapes, what do we need to do next? Once I actually know that they are the grouped shapes, so I have to just simply render them. Now there are two ways, render shape selection or render group selection. So we don't want to render the shape this time, so we just have to render the group selection. And when it comes to rendering a group selection, it just simply draws a selection bounds, and we have to pass these many things. Again, this itself is gonna be either group or child. Even when we are rendering this render shape selection, so we are using the same draw selection bound. So the same thing is actually being used in both the cases. So what do I have to do in here? That is this place, right? So render group selection, probably that would be better. And when it comes to this render group selection, we need to pass CTX. Hopefully I have that. We need to pass bounds. So get group bounds, pass the shapes that are grouped shapes, and the next thing is that scale. So scale is gonna be there by for sure, and that is it. So this way that's gonna be visible. Let's see. And here we are. So this is the once that is added in a group, so that can be okay. Things are not working as expected because I know we have to work on many things, but at the end of the day we are getting the group, right? That's what matters at the end of the day. And once we actually have the group, group even has the tolerance, and we can remove the tolerance for sure. That is the first thing. And the second thing is that now we have to select it, but even before selecting this, we have to remove the tolerance from the group. It has tolerance for no reason. Okay, so render group selection, I get group bounds. This group bounds returns us these. So when it comes to group selection, I don't have to we are getting bounds. These bounds, they have the do we add tolerance here or not? So ultimately this is the render overlay, and when it comes to this, because in render scene we never had this. That simply means the bounds that we get here, we have shapes, we have selected shape IDs, we have scale, and then going ahead when it comes to rendering a selection, so what do we do? Render selection, get a bounding box, and the scale. When it comes to getting the bounding box, it never adds tolerance in there. Probably no. tolerance is definitely added here. So whenever we are getting the bounding box, at that time tolerance is added. What do we have to do? That is in our case over here we have to remove the tolerance. So we are gonna be getting the group bounds, but those group bounds have the tolerance, and to remove the tolerance min x, min y, max x, max y, we have this. Group bounds are gonna be equals to min x, okay, min x, from x we actually have to add to subtract the tolerance. This is the first thing. Min y plus equals to tolerance min max x minus equals to tolerance, and max y minus equals to tolerance. What are we doing here? Removing the tolerance for grouped selection box. Okay, and then we have min x, min y, max x, max y. Once we have this, we are going to use it here. So this way what will happen, that right now if you actually have a look, they do not have bounds, rather it's even overlapping this, right? And that's what we wanted. So this is how it just sort of goes. I think let the tolerance be there, yeah, I mean that's good to have it. Probably later I will see what happens, but if I actually so if we actually have the tolerance, so at least everything is inside the group, right? So having the tolerance doesn't really bother much. So that's fine. And now what are those groups? Because so far we've just been having shapes. Now they are actually groups. So how are we gonna be handling this part? Because when we select the groups, that simply means we are even rendering them separately. And when we select, so they are gonna be the selected groups. What if there are some shapes? Crazy logic. This. So if there are shapes, they are gonna be directly visible, right? If there are groups, only group is going to be highlighted. So this is how we have to go ahead. it's been easy so far because we've been just working with the shapes, so we were able to customize them. But now we need to have both groups as well as this. So now in selected shapes there are gonna be IDs of the group as well, but that's gonna be problematic. Why? Because when we select and shapes are selected, groups are selected, so either I keep them separate and or I keep them together. If I keep them together, so group and shapes, how will I differentiate? And even when we are selecting a group, shapes are definitely getting selected or not? No. So group will have the first priority, but even when I selected a group, suppose this one, so there are shapes inside that, but it turns out that shapes are not selected. So what is this group thing? And we are actually able to accomplish this. It's not really that we are just simply rendering the group, that is fine, but there's a lot more than we even thought of. So once we have this, I'm just thinking if it were just about groups, so we could have rendered the groups separately, but the thing is that we can even select the shapes. Now group is altogether is one entity. Even if there are many shapes inside that, we have to consider it as an entity, and shape itself is an entity. And how can we structure it in such a way? So selected shapes we have had so far. And we can even have selected groups, so there are gonna be two then. We'll have selected groups and we'll have selected shapes. Suppose we try rendering the groups first. So we'll get all the groups rendered like this and this. After that we have to take care of the shapes. And now when it comes to group bounds, so group bounds should be calculating the bounds based on this. One thing we can do, that have separate group selected groups array, and that array will contain the IDs. Have separate selected shapes array, so they are gonna be the separate ones. Now we have to first of all render all the groups, and we have to render all the shapes except those shapes which are part of the groups. This is the first thing. Now when it comes to calculating the total bound, so the all bound is actually calculated by the shapes. So we already have the shapes IDs. So all the shapes, what as per the logic that I'm just thinking of, all the shapes are gonna be the selected one, but if they're part of any group, then they're not gonna be visible. That's the only thing we can do. This is what is happening right now, that even if a shape is a part of a group, it's still visible, right? So we have to stop it from happening. How can we stop it? So whenever I select and I come to this particular section, render shape selection, we get a shape and we render that. if a shape has a group ID, okay, we have to skip it. Again repeating, if a particular shape belongs to a particular group, so in that case I don't have to render the shapes bound, and that is something happening over here. So we have the bound selection dot shapes. We are looping through all the selected shapes, selection shapes, and probably in here, if shape has or shape dot group ID should actually be, have I named it IDs? Okay, so can we continue here? No. Can we return from here? Yes. By the way, it should be group ID, so I'll just have only one group ID, so I expect to get some errors right now. And is it done? Not really. The place where we are actually saving the shapes, let's see where all I have used group IDs. It turns out I haven't used quite a lot. Anyway, coming back to this, now let's check this thing out. If there's only one shape, we are not doing it, but if there is more than one shape, in single shape it does not really work. Let me see. Even in single shape we have to select the whole. Come on, yeah, I should get good examples. So even when I select a single shape, it should select the whole. Even if that is a single shape, we have to stop it from happening. Understood? So if we have to stop it from happening, then we have to check one thing, that if shape, come on, shape dot group ID, if that exists, in that case return from here, don't do anything. Now what will happen? I clicked on what is happening. We are able to, it's visible, even this one is visible, they both are visible together. Now if I create a group selection, so now a group selection is created. As a group selection is created, so what is actually happening, that the inner ones are not visible, and that's what I wanted, didn't I? Now there's a lot to do here. Even the group selection that I created, that many changes need to be done here, but overall this is how it looks like. And group just simply keeps increasing and decreasing. Is this even possible? Not really. So when we just actually move, we have to move both together. So even that is something we have to focus on. The thing is that even if I implement it, the logic is gonna be really complex by then. So we'll have to make sure that we are simplifying the things as well. I mean, if somebody actually reads the logic that I have here, that person will go crazy. Anyway, we will, let me implement this functionality. After that we will refactor the code. We'll make it more understandable, of course with the help of AI. As for right now, let's just simply focus on this. So let's get rid of this as of right now. At least these comments are making sure that what's actually being done. Selection is here. It should be shape selection, that is enough. Group selection, that is also great. And we have definitely stopped it from happening. If shape belongs to a group, return. Same thing is actually happening over here as well, and that is it. What's the next thing that we are doing? This is enough, but now the question comes, when I hover over it, so the mouse is changing, that's fine. Now if the shape belongs to a group, so when I move one shape, other shape should be moving as well. Okay, so we have to change the coordinates of both, and that is sort of right. So we have to implement this now. Fine. So let's come back to this. Use shape. First of all, when I click on one shape, both should be selected. So ultimately, time to have selected groups IDs as well. And selected groups IDs, exactly how many groups are actually selected at the current time. And after that, yeah, that's gonna be better, but it's gonna be too much, yaar. Anyway, once I started, I need to finish it. Now we need to have one more thing. Editor store, it already has the selection slice. In the selection slice, it has selected shape IDs, selected bounce IDs, and all selected bounce. I'm gonna be having selected groups IDs, selected groups IDs, and actually it's gonna be sort of the same. So we'll just simply copy it from here, paste it in here. This is gonna be selected groups IDs and set selected groups IDs will have the updater. This is gonna be here, this is gonna be here, and set selected groups IDs. We need to define proper type for it. So to do that, even we need to have it here, selected groups IDs, set selected groups IDs, editor store. Let's go to the selection section, and let's copy this part and have it here again. So the type is gonna be selected groups IDs string, set selected groups IDs, just like this. Honestly, I think after this I'll have to refactor the code, otherwise it's gonna be too much. Okay, we can refactor the code, not really big problem. Okay, so this part is done, and once this is done, so we are already having it inside the store, so no problem as such. We should just simply get the selectors and selection, export const use set selected groups IDs. use editor store state dot are we setting it here? Okay, set selected groups IDs. So set selected groups IDs, this is the first one. We even have to get that, so let's subscribing the value as well. Let's subscribe the value. So use selected groups IDs, use editor store state dot use selected group IDs. Alright, so we are exporting both from here. Now we should be able to get it anywhere, and once we are actually able to get it anywhere, so what is the next thing? What is the issue here? Okay, this is gonna be selection.ts. Yeah, sorry, that's problematic. So I can come back here directly, that is fine. So this particular thing is done. Now things are alright, and the only thing is that I have this. If I select both, convert them to a group selection, it actually looks like this. Okay, and we have to render the things. Interesting. So those things need to be rendered only when there are groups. That is also right. There can be only one group or there can be many. That is also right. In that case, first of all, what do I have to do? If there are shapes, right, there are shapes like this. So this is how they are being bounds are being shown here, and that's what I wanted, that a group should be separate and the shapes should be separate, and that is something that's already happening because the way we've written the logic. And the next thing is that I want to move it. That's the interesting thing. If I move it together, we are able to move it. That is great. We are able to move it all, right? And now what I want that just moving this is not enough. Even we are able to resize, that's another case. So as we are resizing, we have to update this bounds as well. Updating the value of the bounds while resizing, is that possible? Yeah. What, yes or no? Resizing the value of this group bounds. Group bounds contains what? It contains the shapes. Why isn't this getting changed on the go? We are only able to change the value of the shape. This group bound only changes when the mouse up happens. That means there is something missing. So probably this is something that is happening, right? So whenever we resize the shape ultimately, so on pointer up we have, and on pointer this is just the resize function we have. So whenever we resize, this gets called, and whenever the pointer up happens, we set the shapes and we invalidate the scene. We invalidate scene, and what do we have to do? That is right, we have to invalidate the scene in here. How about when the resizing is actually happening? So we are invalidating the overlay. When we are actually resizing, we are invalidating the overlay. Do we really need to do this? When I resize something, there are some shapes that are selected, there are some shapes that are not. So as soon as I select them, they are already removed from the scene and they are just here. Yeah, that's fine. The only thing that is missing right here, that is setting the value. So as we resize, what do? We never set the value. We have interaction ref, we have the preview shape, but we are not really changing the value of groups. Interesting. So the value is in the group is only being saved when the mouse up happens. That is why that's not changing on the go. That is fine. So the simple thing is that we are not changing the value. So if we are not changing the value, so how are we able to change the size of the bounds? And the reason could be this, that we are changing the shape, preview shape, and whenever the mouse up happens, only at that time we simply change the state, and that's not a bad thing. The only thing is that when I'm rendering, we have pointer refs here. Once we have the pointer refs, we have interaction over here. Once we have interaction, so we just simply use the preview shape. Congratulations, we have one more task, and that task is that the group that I'm actually getting from the state, I actually have to get the group from the preview state, so ultimately from the ref, so that the state is not being used or being set when the mouse is moving, and when the mouse up happens, when it actually gets done. So instead of getting this group from where? From the state itself, what do we have to do? We have to get it from the interaction, because at the end of the day we are interacting, and in the interaction, let's have the group as of right now. If I go to the pointer state, in the interaction, when we start resizing, select do this or rotate and all. So I'll have preview shapes. Preview shapes means it contains all the shapes, all the selected previewed shapes. It has the group bounds of all those shapes. That's really a good thing. It should have one more thing. What is that? Now the whole logic is gonna be asterisk. Whatever I've written. Okay, let's do it. So it should have one more thing, and that's gonna be grouped shapes. Why grouped shapes? So that once I have the grouped shapes, I can render the group bounds. And if a shape has a group ID, that shape's bounds are not gonna be visible. Okay, fine. The only thing is that now I have to fix it at many places. Start selection interaction. Let's have group shapes as an empty array as of right now. Why an empty array? Let me see what we are doing here. Start selection interaction. So when we start the selection interactions, if something is selected, that should be group. Not really. If something is selected, that doesn't mean that is going to be a group. So how do I know that there is a group? By the group ID. So if preview shape that I have, it has group ID. Actually I have preview shapes left. Interesting. So preview shapes, any shape cannot be just the first of all, what is the preview shape here? Even before that, where is this being called? This start selection has preview shapes. What are these preview shapes? They are the selected ones, right? Once they are the selected shapes, so all selected shapes cannot be group, right? So in that case, preview shapes dot filter, and I'll get a shape. Once I have the shape, so I'll see one thing, that is shape dot group ID. If that is present, then that's gonna be the group shape. So this is what is happening here. And then start resize interaction. When we are even resizing, at that time it think about it. When we resize, so we are resizing both group shapes as well as normal ones. So, but again, just like here, grouped shapes cannot be all the shapes. Only when there is a ID, group ID in that particular shape, then only that can be grouped shape. So that is fine as well. There's one more place. Move, when we move, the same thing needs to be done. The only thing is that now we don't have preview shape, we have interaction dot preview shape. That's not really a problematic thing. Interaction dot preview shape. Any problem? No problem as such. And whenever we select, we need to have this as well. So as I'm selecting, let's paste it here. Preview shapes. Do we have preview shapes here? When I select, only one shape can be selected at a time. So this and this. So preview shape, if that's actually gonna be an array, right? Group shapes, so that's fine as well. We are just gonna be filtering it like this, or it's gonna be empty. Alrighty, this seems to be done. So is it raining outside? Probably. Okay, never mind. So how long has it been? 1 hour. So what have we done so far? We've done quite a lot. Now we have to go to this renderer again. And over here, instead of getting groups from the state, I have to get groups from the interaction itself, so that we are not changing the state over and over. So these groups that I'm actually getting, I don't even yeah, that's fine. Groups means it has the group shapes. Okay, interaction. This is the interaction we have. and now interaction dot group shapes. Now the thing is that how will I know that if the group actually exists? That is an interesting question. How do we know that group exists when you are overlaying? So if the type is equals to none, it does not exist. Okay. Is a transform interaction? So group is always gonna be there during moving it, resizing it, and rotating it, and even probably while selecting this. Okay, that simply means except none. Just a minute. Pointer state, we have none. We have draw. Preview shape is gonna be there. So except both these and selection box. So what do I have to do here? Interaction dot type when it comes to group shapes. So if is a transform interaction, and this, not only that, and interaction dot type equals to select so what are we doing? If is a transform interaction means selected interaction type is move, resize or rotate, or it is equals to select, and I think this needs to be group shapes. That's fine. And if the interaction dot group shapes is greater than 0, then what do we have to do? We are directly gonna be getting the group shapes, so no need to get the IDs. We already have the group shapes, no need to filter. We already have the group shapes. Once we have the group shapes, so we have to get the group bounds, and when it comes to getting group bounds, we are passing sort of all the group shapes. Now group shapes means what? There can be many groups. Yeah, that's problematic thing. When it comes to selecting a shape, they may belongs to many different groups as well. So based on the group ID they need to go. What the hell? There is a problem. The problem is inside this. Where did we change the things recently? Use selection action whenever we select, and then we do these things. yeah, so this is the place where we have to make changes. Preview shape dot filter, it cannot be directly. Grouped shapes type is not gonna be just like this, rather grouped shapes will actually be a key value pair, key value object, and that will have different groups and it will have their different shapes. So it's not as simple as we just guessed right here. So grouped shapes, it usually has the ID and the shapes in them, right? So the ID of the group and the shapes IDs. Can we have an array? Yeah, we can. So can we structure it the same way? So the group bounds that I actually have, that's gonna be an array, but group type array in the sense there's gonna be ID, there are gonna be shapes. So this way no doubt I'll have errors, and time to fix the errors again. The way we thought of structuring it that way itself is wrong. I go crazy looking at the way I've written the code. Anyway, this is not the right way. So what is the right way? We have grouped shapes, and once we have grouped shapes we have to return an array. But that array should first of all, preview shapes dot filter shape group ID. So I have all the shapes which actually have the group IDs in them. That simply means they belong to some shapes or the other. The next thing is that I have to do dot map. I'm gonna be getting the shape. Once I get the shape, I have to return what? That's gonna be a good logic right here. That's insane. So let's do one thing. I don't want to. Let's have the logic, then we'll keep it somewhere else. What do we actually want to do? As we are getting the shapes, so at the end of the day, what do we have to return? Const group. I have to return a group, and that group will be of type group. As simple as that. Okay, this particular thing is done. So the type is usually gonna be this. Now I need to get the type. So what I have to do, if group and shape dot ID if it does not exist, what is the problem? String can't be used as index to group. Element implicitly has any type because expression of string can't be used to index type group to no signature with parameter string was found on the group. Okay, fine. doesn't have the ID. Group dot ID if it's not equals to shape dot ID. Even not that, because it is gonna be completely undefined in that particular case. Group is used before being assigned. So what we have to do, that is I have this group. First of all, let's make it an object, just like this. Done. And now what I will do, that if group dot ID, it's driving my mind crazy. What is my goal? My goal is simple, that if the group doesn't exist, we have to create, and if it does exist, we don't have to worry. Okay, fine. But creating the group here, that doesn't make any sense, because I'll keep overwriting this. That's right. So probably this needs to be kept here. Filter map, when we are mapping through that, we have to keep creating the groups if they do not exist. If the group exists, then I have to push. So we are gonna need two things, group ID and the shapes ID each. And that shape definitely has the group ID as well. So group dot so this way ID, that's gonna be shape dot group ID. But the group that I'm actually talking about, it needs to be a key value pair. That is okay. What is gonna be the key here? The key is gonna be the ID directly. I'm stuck, but okay, not for long. Coming back to this, we have the group like this. This is the type of the group, and usually there is ID and there are shapes ID each. So let's do one thing. We'll have a key and a value. Even this is not bad way either. So if we actually have it like this, so we'll have to see if there is an object. So if it has the key and value, but when it comes to group, there can be many groups, and that can be problematic. That's fine. key is gonna be string, the value is gonna be what, selected shapes. What was that earlier? String document. Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna have value like this. So what does this do? It has the ID of the group and it has all the shapes IDs that belong to that particular group. So this is how I'm just simply gonna be going ahead. Group ID. Fine, this is even not bad once we've done this much. So the next thing that we need to do, that is fixing this. But before even fixing this, I'd like to fix this. And now let's try doing this now. So what is our goal here? I have groups, there are gonna be many ID each, so let's name it like this. Once I have groups, if groups colon shape dot id, if it actually exists, then great, don't do anything. If it actually exists, then you have to push. So groups groups shape dot id dot push the shape, else groups shape dot id, that's gonna be empty array. Implicitly has any type because of the string cannot be used as index, cannot be used to index this, and string cannot be used. Okay, but ultimately this thing is done, and when we have all the groups, instead of map we actually need to use an accumulator, right? It's gonna just accumulate all the groups and all, that's fine. So instead of this, I'm gonna use reduce accumulator and current. Initial value is gonna be this. Grouped shapes. So there needs to be an ID, and then there needs to be values, and this way it will keep going on. And when it comes to a group, so what is the first goal? The first goal is to just simply get all the IDs, all the shapes, by looping through them. As simple as that. We'll simply put it here. We have preview shapes filter. We got all the filtered values, if they have the group IDs. For each, I'm gonna be getting the shape. Here we are. And once we have this, so what do we have to do? We already have groups, right? So once we have groups, so if groups colon shape.id, if it doesn't exist, then do something. If that does exist, then do something. If the groups.shape.id, if that does exist, then groups.shape.id dot push the shape. Then otherwise groups.shape.id is gonna be an array. So ultimately what happened, let's give it, there was a not this, how to define, just a sec, I'm actually getting a call, I'll actually pick it up, I'll be back. Alright everybody, here we are, and let's get going and just see what all can be done. Just a minute, let me have some water. So how to define type of an object in PS. There was a way, I just forgot that method name. What was that? Record, yeah. I was writing RR many times just to guess that. String. That is it. What now? Object is possibly undefined, so bhai, we want to push the value, so grouped shapes, if we have it, then only this should happen. Argument of type shape is not in preview shape. We are gonna be storing directly in the shape. Here we are. Alrighty, what are we doing in here? That pretty simple thing, that is when start selection happens, not when start selection happens. Let me create a proper object for it, that would be better, as proper function, and that proper function would be get grouped shapes. Then we'll have it here, so probably let's keep it at the top for now. GROUPED grouped shapes. So first of all we need preview shapes, so they need to be passed here, right here. So preview shapes, and once we have it, we are gonna be having group here, and at the end I'm gonna return the groups. But before even that, let's make it simpler in the sense preview shapes, GROUPED shapes. Once we have the grouped shapes, after that grouped shapes dot, for each we will go through all those grouped shapes, and then we'll actually create an object with the key as an ID and value as the shapes which have that particular group ID. This way I'll get a group that has the key, that's nothing but the ID, and the shape, and it has shapes, that simply means there are many shapes. So we have get grouped shapes. Now when we have it, preview shapes, done. Now the type of it needs to change, so the grouped shape that I'm actually gonna get, that's gonna be for shape of this, that's fine. So the first thing is done. Get grouped shapes. We have preview shapes, we have grouped shapes, so that should press the preview shapes. Grouped shapes is actually an object, and preview shapes is actually an array. Keep that thing in mind. Anyway, let's go ahead. We have preview shapes, so we have to just simply pass it in here. Interaction.preview shapes, so we have the grouped shapes. Done. We have grouped shapes, so whenever we are selecting, that is also fine, and overall this is okay. Let's go in here. Now when it comes to group selection, so from the top. Coming back to this, we have interaction. After having the interaction, coming back to this, now we are gonna get the group shapes. And what do we have to do? We have grouped shapes. Okay. And if interaction dot grouped shapes length is greater than 0, then this is shown. In our case, what do we have to do? The type of data that we have right now, that is the ID and the shapes, right? And our goal is that we have to get that, and we have to, once we have all the shapes, we have to get the bounds, and once we actually have the bounds, we have to just render that, as simple as that. So in that case, grouped shapes, this is how the logic is not gonna be. So how will the logic be like when it comes to the logic? So this time I'll be getting the values again and again. So it's gonna be const for const shape of object dot values of what? Values of interaction dot grouped shapes. So this particular part returns us the values only. Once we just have the values, so I just got a value, so I'm gonna be getting they are gonna be grouped shapes. Or I'm gonna be getting shapes. Grouped shapes. It should rather be group. Why am I naming it grouped shapes? Okay, let it be the name. Let the name be this. Later we'll fix it. So once we have all the shapes, what do we have to do? Once we have all the shapes, we have to get the bounds. Okay. So const bounds are gonna be equals to get group bounds in the shapes. After that, render group selection, pass the context, pass the bounds, call it bounds scale. So we are rendering it like this. Great. And apart from this particular thing, any error here? No error as such. Go to yeah, so now the group that we have, that's not gonna be like this. So what will it be like? It will be like how about this? Not bad, but how will you fix the errors? selected shape IDs. Handle group selection. So whenever we click on the group, then this gets called. So at that time the type should be this. Having the type like this means simple. So we have the group ID and the selected shapes IDs for that particular group. Now set shapes, we are gonna get all the previous shapes, we are mapping through them, and if a shape has the previous shape dot selected that's the ID. Okay. Has previous shape dot ID, in that case return the previous shapes plus the group ID is gonna be new group ID, and then this. What is the problem? Group ID are incompatible. Type this or undefined is not assignable to array is not on group ID shapes where is the editor store? Here it is. Let's go to the slice selection, selected group IDs. And that's gonna be an array. So in the shape we have all the selected group IDs. But in the shape I'm talking about. So in the shape it should be group ID itself. So if it is actually group ID, set groups are fine, right? Just after that we are setting the groups. So when it comes to setting a group, so we are getting this and the new group in the sense this, really bad. New group dot group ID, set groups, what it stores, set group stores the IDs. Set groups selection, string array, that simply means I have to pass just this string in here. So set groups, I'm gonna get the previous values, so I'm having them here, and then the new group that I have, then its group ID, or to be precise just the group ID. String is not assignable to type group, so type group. It needs group. Set groups. Use set groups. Use editor store. Editor store. I'm clearly mentioning it that I just want selected group ID. So set selected group IDs. Why are you setting the group? Because if you set the group, you'll get it like this. Interesting. So there are two things. Either I'm gonna set the group or I'm gonna set the selected group ID. Okay, so I thought of setting the selected group IDs. Why to set the whole group when we can just get that? Yeah, that comes under selection. Set selected group IDs. Now the selected group IDs in the sense all the groups that have been selected. So the IDs of them. So you just set selected group IDs. So I'm just simply gonna be storing the selected groups IDs. And apart from this particular thing, now we have to do this. Set shapes. In the shapes we have the group ID, so it's just simply saying that string this is not assignable to this. So new group dot ID that I actually have. So instead of passing the new group ID, how about simply passing the group ID? Here it is. So it's gonna be just the straight forward way. Simple. Great. So we are storing the group ID as well. The way we are handling it, that is fine too. So what's the result? Great. Group selection. It looks like this. And that's what we wanted, right? As for the effect, it is working on all, but that's fine. So it is sort of working well. Again, there are many things that are yet to be implemented. This is moving only when both are selected. Now I want to select it when only one is selected, so that is something we have to fix. Apart from this particular thing, if there are some other shapes, so it looks fine, but what I want that this group itself should have a border instead of having nothing, right? So that is something we have to focus on now. Let me take a break for a while. It's half done, more than half done, I think. We'll just work on it more. I'm gonna just take a break for a while. It's been 1 hour and 56 minutes and all. I'll be back after 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll continue working on this. Until then, bye bye, take care.